My name is Earle, and I'm a writer for children and for teenagers. And in particular, I wrote this book called When the Sky Falls. Empathy is absolutely key to every book that I write. And sometimes that's an intuitive thing. Sometimes I'm really aware of it. But I think a book that doesn't have empathy at its heart is a kind of an empty read. And I was really aware that when I was writing When the Sky Falls, that Joseph, the main protagonist, was not going to be a particularly, at first glance, likable character. He was going to be challenging. His behaviour was going to be challenging. He was going to be aggressive and surly and difficult. He would have a short fuse. He would be occasionally violent. And what I wanted to do was to bring out quite a strong reaction to him in the reader, because I wanted them to ask that question of why. Because that's what empathy is. It's about us asking why a person behaves in a certain way. And what I wanted the character's journey to be was one that kind of digs away at him. You're pulling away layers of him almost, and you're starting to realise that this person, Joseph, behaves in this way because of the things that have happened to him throughout his life. And as you start to put all the different pieces of his life together, despite his spiky exterior, you grow not just hopefully to like him, but indeed to love him. So When the Sky Falls, really, I guess, is in some ways, it's like many of the other World War II novels that have been written, but almost in reverse, in a way. There's been a lot of great evacuation stories like Goodnight, Mr. Tom, or Valley of the Lost Secrets by Leslie Parr. But instead of this book being about a boy travelling from the city to the countryside, our hero, Joseph, is travelling in the opposite direction. He's travelling from the safety of the country to the dangers of the city, because it's in the city that lives one woman, Mrs. F, and she's the only person who will take this unruly boy in. And Mrs. F runs the local zoo, except the zoo has very few prized assets left. A lot of the animals have either been evacuated themselves out to safari parks in the countryside or put to sleep. One of the only animals that remains is this guy, a surly, aggressive, aging silverback gorilla called Adonis. And when Joseph and Adonis meet for the first time, I think it's fair to say they don't like each other. In fact, they pretty much detest each other. But my job as the writer, as the pages turn and the months pass, was to make Joseph and Adonis become the firmest of friends. Because by the end of the story, Joseph is going to have in his hand a rifle, and he is going to have to be pointing it at his best friend. Because as the bombs fall, if a bomb was to fall and to blow out the wall to Adonis's cage, Adonis would be free, and he would be free to go on the rampage, and in a scared and hungry and confused state could hurt a lot of people. So Joseph is going to be left with a very big decision on his hands, which is, could he and would he possibly pull the trigger on the one thing in his life that has truly loved him? Empathy, I think, is flowing. I hope, if I've done my job properly, is flowing through every single character in the book. Because I didn't know this while I was writing it. Interestingly, I'm not a writer that plans my plots in advance. A lot of writers do. They're really meticulous about, okay, chapter 1, this is happening, these are the characters, and so on, all the way through all the different chapters. I don't. I just sit down and write. And what I discovered as I was writing this book, that every single character that I was writing about, whether it was Joseph, Adonis, Mrs. F, Sid, Grice, they've all lost something. They've all lost something massive, something instrumental in their life. They all feel abandoned in some way. And so empathy, if I was to write about them without empathy, they just wouldn't feel real. You know, they would feel one-dimensional, stereotypical. You wouldn't, as a reader, believe them. And for me, empathy is the thing that injects reality and your love as a reader. It's empathy that injects that into the characters. Empathy's the key. You know, it brings you in, it draws you in, because I think it's our basic human nature to look out for each other and to care for each other. So yeah, empathy is absolutely vital, and it doesn't matter whether it's you're talking about a human like Joseph or a beast like Adonis. That animal still feels. They may not be able to verbalize it in the same way, but you can see it etched on Adonis's face. The fact that he sits in the same place every night waiting for his love to return, he is feeling those same feelings of loss that Joseph does. So yeah, it's possible to imbue every single character, animal or human, with the same levels of empathy. I realised as I was writing the book, as a writer, you want to write the most exciting book imaginable. You want it to feel like you're riding the best roller coaster. And often at the end of a really great roller coaster is there's a big moment, one big final drop or one big explosion or something. If you're on a log flume, the big ending is you crash into the water and it's exciting. So yeah, absolutely. And I wanted there to be a moment of real social change, not not just, well, for all the characters that are there in the end. At the end, without giving away anything away, you're left with Joseph, Mrs. F, and Adonis, and bombs are falling, and there are flames, and there is destruction. Their lives are hugely changed by the end. In terms physically around them, the landscape is burning, but also the change is there within them as well. By by the end of the novel, although each of them has lost something really fundamental, they've also found something fundamental as well, and it's being empathetic that's led them to that point. It's allowing themselves to be seen and to see the emotion of the people that allows that change, that social change. It brings them together as a family, I guess, as a unit. I think my hope, if there's anything, I guess that my readers can take away from the book, it does come back to empathy. That fact that Joseph, despite being spiky and difficult and obnoxious, he is also someone deserving and worthy of love, and there are reasons why he behaves in the way that he does. And I hope that people can see that on by the end of the book, that not just he, that Adonis as well, and Sid and Mrs. F, and even Grice, the horrible headmaster, that they've all gone on a journey, that they've all managed to make some sort of significant change in their lives, and that things, or people rather, should never be written off. That's the key thing. And again, that's empathy at its most basic. Seeing someone out there on the street and going, I don't like the look of you, but or meeting them at school and staying with them, not judging them too quickly, trying to understand why they behave like they do, because more times than not, that there was always reasons for people behaving as they do, even if it's in a challenging way. I think it's really hard to articulate this, but empathy can make huge differences to you in your daily life, in small and large ways. It certainly can make me. I charge at things in life. I charge at things all the time. I've got to do this, and I've got to do it quickly, and it needs to be done well. And actually, if I just step back and take my time, because then I'm showing empathy to myself as well. Do you know? I'm showing a kindness and a considerateness to myself. I will generally do a much better job. And also, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's also nice to be nice. And there's something great about getting through to the end of the day and lying there in bed before you go into sleep and being able to reflect on the day and being able to say, yeah, I did all right today. I really enjoyed that interaction with that person that sometimes I've struggled with. I can give myself a bit of a pat on the back because I was a bit more patient or a bit more sensitive, or I made a joke out of something that normally I would have got cross about. And I think that can make a, a simple but really big difference to the way that not just you view other people, but also the way you view yourself as well.